I'm your host, Ethan Sive, and on this show, we sit down with founders, operators, and decision makers to break down how real businesses actually run, grow, and improve behind the scenes. Today, I'm joined by Doug Phares. Doug, how are you today?
Having a great day. And thanks for pronouncing it right. Not everybody gets it right the first time.
Absolutely. Glad we got that right for you. Doug has built and operates multiple ventures under SilverWind. That is his main company, spanning business leadership, operational growth, retail, and consulting. What really stood out to me is his focus on management philosophy, how strong business fundamentals and leadership principles can apply across industries and regardless of the specific product. Doug, before we get too deep, for someone hearing about Silverwind for the first time, how would you explain what you actually do day to day and what businesses you're currently focused on?
So SilverWind Enterprises was first conceived at a period of time where I knew my corporate career was probably coming to an end. I grew up in the news media business and with newspapers at their core. Monopolies are great when they work, but once they start to fail and crumble, you know that they're gone. Knowing and watching all the different customers and clients and small business teams that I had worked with in various capacities, I was really entranced by and believed in that there was going to be a period of time where a whole lot of folks were going to be exiting small and medium-sized businesses that they had started, but never really matured or never really advanced into the internet age. It's just looking at math, looking at ages, and looking things out there. So SilverWind really was conceived of a way to acquire different kinds of businesses from founders who were aging out and really not interested in doing the leveling up or the reinventing of their business that was necessary. And we envisioned it as a family business. My wife and I were the first two principals. And a lot of what we saw and felt was really looking at what I had learned in the newspaper business was we rapidly innovated. We rapidly had to rebuild the industry. It was too little too late, but the work of figuring it out and building the new digital enterprises really taught me a ton about what business needs to do to survive and thrive in the future. And I saw so many other industries and so many other small businesses that were not capable of making that leap on their own.
So, from my understanding, Silverwind is essentially the umbrella that helps you manage and operate multiple ventures while each business serves a different market.
Correct. So SilverWind Enterprises, it's an umbrella. It really started as an acquisition tool and as a management consulting group. I had some of the like-minded folks that helped work to help manage and coach others. But we really wanted to be operators. So we started operating. We acquired a tourism business from Florida. And it was, again, an aging couple, had built a great business, had a great margin, but were not prepared to really move past the ticket and handwritten age of making reservations and selling and marketing. And so we acquired that, and that was a vessel by which my son joined our business. So within Silverwind, I get to be the mastermind because I've got a long, breadth of business experience. Each one of our businesses or units has somebody who's a principal and a director that really runs it hands-on. So that was our first attempt at how does the structure work? Can we make it work?
For someone newer to this world, could you break down those core businesses in simple terms?
So we had purchased a tourism business, which we purchased, grew, modernized, and sold, and exited out of that a couple of years ago. We then purchased a career services business called Career Pathways, which operates as the professional association of resume writers and career coaches. Big name, but it was a interesting niche business that does training and career services in a spot not a whole lot of the people were. We still own that business. My wife runs that full time. We made the investment to modernize it, digitize it, start doing online training, all kinds of online meetings and webinars and coaching, and really leapfrogged it from the analog business that it has been. So that still operates and we still have that and it works well. We then decided to actually move into the franchise world in retail. We were starting to find that the businesses we wanted to buy were becoming harder to come by as we had to leverage and borrow money as private equity was moving deeper and deeper into the business sizes. So once they got into the sub $5 million businesses, it got very tough for us to be able to borrow and acquire. So found our way into franchise world. So we own retail stores. It's the bricks and minifigs system. And my son has transitions to be the primary director of those businesses. And we have bricks and mortar stores and a digital store, online store that operate in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. And then after that, About a little more than a year ago, another partner and I created a business called Launchwell Strategies. And that was really something we created from scratch, identifying that there's a massive gap in business understanding and knowledge for people that want to get into business. And this grew out of my observations in launching franchises. Franchise systems are not good at teaching you bookkeeping, nuts and bolts, staffing, a business organization, capital management. They're just good at teaching you their concept. So we saw a lot of failures in that area. And my partner, who's in commercial real estate, sees it firsthand when a lot of her tenants tend to fail because they are struggling to be business people, not just operating the business. So Launchwell came into being, and we beta tested it, and we're out live now, and we're in several different systems and looking to grow that to all of them.
I think you mentioned that your son is involved as well as your wife. Is this a family business that you started here?
It is family business. It's not exclusive family. It just seems to work out that way. So my wife runs Career Pathways. My son runs Bricktopia, which is the name of the franchise business. Launchwell Strategies, however, the primary driver is my partner, who's not a family member. Name's Kula. Super smart, and we have no issue with non-family members being involved. I also have a daughter who's involved. She does marketing and technical support across some of the businesses, but no real interest or aptitude to run them. So it's a good place for that.
Sounds like you guys have all expanded your knowledge into a lot of different ventures there. You mentioned management philosophy as a real passion of yours. For someone hearing that term and maybe not fully understanding it, what does management philosophy actually mean to you?
Ethan, we do not have enough time for this. We could go on for days and days and days. A couple of things that resonate me when I think about management philosophy. One is making sure people are empowered with an understanding of what success looks like. And it's not just make money. It's not just grow the business, but what actually does someone need to do in their daily life, their weekly life, to make the business successful? And the answer is different depending on where they are in the food chain. If you are the principal of the business and you are in charge of vision, that's a very different role than if you're the person who has to lock the front door and make sure that the biscuits are ready to go for breakfast if you're in a restaurant. But knowing and making sure you communicate to people what success looks like for them and how do they contribute. That's management philosophy. But I believe, and I've watched throughout my career, no one takes a new job and says, well, I hope I can be mediocre at this. People want to show up. They want to contribute. They want to be a part of things. And what a lot of business structures do is demotivate that. So my management philosophy is you empower people to make an impact. You show them how they can make an impact in their role. And the ones that have a lot of aptitude, you start showing them bigger and bigger roles.
So management philosophy is really your bigger picture framework for how businesses should be structured, led, and scaled effectively, regardless of industry, as well as the mindset outside of work, the vision, and the discipline that it takes.
There's a lot of work that goes behind all of that, right? There's coaching, there's managing, there is making sure the message gets through, and there's organizing it all. So an area I'm good at, and that's why I can make these contributions, is looking at the bigger picture and helping to see the bites and the parts, and getting those messages organized. I think that is probably one of my strongest management skills, which is helping people see that role. So once you break it down to a level they can understand it, most people want to show up, they lean in, and they make a difference.
I think that's the golden rule in business is, making sure that the staff, the people, they all want to be there. If they want to be there, they'll put in the work. Do you think most business owners actually think that way, or do you think a lot of them are more focused on the products rather than the deeper framework?
It's a box of chocolates. You have a whole lot of folks that come at it from very different angles. And I have throughout my career seen too many that are very product focused and they don't understand the bigger picture. They're the ones that are unable to scale. They're the ones that are unable to leave their business because they are too integral to its daily operations. They're the ones that are afraid to empower. And I don't speak ill of them. As long as that's okay with you and you're fine with where you are, you're just very hostage to your own role if you're very product focused.
One of the businesses that you mentioned was Launchwell. For people hearing that for the first time, what exactly is Launchwell? Who is it for? And what problem does it solve?
Launchwell Strategies is designed to help people go from zero to business without stumbling. So there's 101 decisions you have to make if you're going to launch a small business. I don't care if it's a franchise system or just a regular business. Launchwell is about giving you the tools you need to get into business. It doesn't teach a product. It doesn't teach how to go knock on doors and sell things. It teaches you how to get organized, to get your head right, to make sure you know your job, and then have all the different tools you need to get the organization and structure of the business out of the way so that when you're ready to start your concept, you can do it on a strong foundation.
So what made you realize that specific gap existed?
Watching failure. So both both watching the people that I went through franchise system training with and scratching my head wondering how are they ever going to get past the basics. If you're asking about math and staffing and how do I find a payroll provider when you're supposed to be training for your concept, you are not ready to be in business. You need to have your business structure, foundation, your capital structure, all of that organized and thought through before you actually get into the nuts and bolts of it. I watched that. And then again, it was comparing notes to the colleague who is in real estate development. And we started to see the commonalities because she was seeing failure rates because people were getting into businesses with a great idea, a great passion, or a love of a product without any idea of how to make sure they have the right kind of money, that they're managing it well, and that they are building a structure around themselves so that they can succeed and that they're not hostage to being there every day. So we compared notes, and the more notes we compared, the more we started to see a whole lot of common points of failure. And so we've really structured the company to make sure that the training we provide, the management consulting we provide, gets people really on a strong footing.
You said strong business fundamentals transcend the product itself. In practical terms, what are some fundamentals that tend to matter no matter what business someone is in?
Units and rate. I swear to you, when my first job was selling newspaper advertising, and that was always sold by the square inch for us for a price. And while it seems goofy, we structured everything around it. Our budgeting, our planning, our sales targets were all about how many of these little things you get, these little squares you're going to sell at how many dollars. The more I moved on through business, the more I realized almost all business is about units and rate. What is the product and what can you get for it? Are you able to shave costs and sell it lower? Can you charge a premium and get a higher margin on it? What is your incremental costs? It's all about how many units go in, how many hours need to go in to produce something. Um, I think almost all business, if you can just start thinking about it and analyze how many of what at what rate, you are able to really start understanding business at a nuts and bolts level without getting hung up in very complicated terms or very complicated formulas and concepts.
When businesses diversify or start scaling, what usually becomes the hardest part operationally? Do you think it's people, process, delegation, or maintaining strategic clarity?
Yes. A lot is going to depend on the speed of the leader, right? Because your typical founder is going to have one or two or three of those skill sets in their toolbox. And they might be very, very good at maybe they're good at operations and they're good at product, but they might not be so good at the process underlying building the business. So you're not ready to scale if you can't do the basics of getting people hired and explaining their mission to them, of having a place for them to work or the tools they need to work. The reduction of friction is the thing that I think a whole lot of owners and managers are not good at. The ones that scale and successfully scale quickly, I think they figure out how to pull out friction, which is once they've explained, this is how this person's going to make us be successful. This is how Ethan's going to come into our business. I need this contribution, Ethan. Great. You've explained it. Do you have the tools? Are you empowered? And do you understand how to pull the levers to make it work and the latitude in which you can do that? And that's about getting friction out. That's looking at every part of the process, the support team, the product, the sales funnel, to see where are things getting hung up and how do I remove the friction?
I think there's a huge difference between managing a team and leading a team. And a lot of what you just said, I think that absolutely relates there. In your experience, if we were to take a look at 10 businesses right now, where do you think most of them are losing efficiency, money, opportunity without even realizing it?
I think we're at a very interesting inflection point right now, Ethan. I think a lot of businesses are really hung up in AI impact cycles, which is where is AI supposed to be helping me? Where am I using it? And how do I find some answers and how to get there? I actually just talked to an interesting startup founder last week and trying to solve for that and to build some consulting work and a consulting team to be able to solve that problem for folks. I think it's very real. So I think right now that tech adoption is going to dwarf the adoption of e-commerce. And when you think about the massive impacts that had, And when we had to start retooling our whole supply chain and food chain for that, I think that's where we are. I think that's the big hang up.
Doug, you've worked across multiple ventures and industries yourself. Could you share an example of a business that you had clear operational blind spots or bottlenecks, and how better management philosophy or stronger fundamentals helped improve it?
Yes, we started up within our news business, our newspaper business, and I was CEO at the time. We were a large decentralized group spread across the country. We're really failing at digital transformation and digital adoption. And I had to go inspect when I got the keys, I had to go inspect all the different units and all the different teams, and everybody was replicating the same functionality in different ways in 13 different business units spread across the country. And each was just different enough that they were not compatible. They couldn't work with each other. And furthermore, they were even a little combative with anybody who had different philosophies. That was a major overhauling to get those teams blended and to get them working together for a common goal. It took that was a hard one. That was a lot of independent people, and yeah, it took a lot of pushing and a lot of leading to get to a common vision.
What do you think surprises people the most, when that happens? Do you think it's how much they're missing or how fixable the problems actually were?
I think one of the big things you get is pride of ownership. People are pretty sure they're doing it the right way, I find in a lot of cases, and being able to work someone past, you might be doing okay, but you need to open your eyes to what is happening elsewhere or what could be, and not just look at what is. So getting people past the pride of ownership is often a real challenge when you're trying to blend a team or build a team out of different parts.
One thing I found really interesting is some of your work is deeply tied to improving business performance itself. Does that change how clients or businesses respond to working with you?
No, being better is about being better. I, it would be nice to say that everybody can just 3x their business in a year, or scale up by 10 or 20 times. Where you read great stories about that, and that does happen. I'm a little more pragmatic in that most business growth is a little more linear and a little more pragmatic. You need to set realistic goals. You need to set reach goals. And then you need to, I'm going to go back to units of rate, Ethan, being able to look at folks and say, what is the impact of changing these aspects? Let's look at, let's pick some inputs and some factors under your control, and let's start tinkering with them in a very controlled fashion. Tinker is a bad word, but if I change this set of inputs, what is my output going to be? And have the discipline to start predicting what that should be and see if you're right. And if you can do that on one level, what does a little more do? What does a little more do? And setting yourself a goal. So I'll give you a real life example. We're looking at our retail stores, and this is my first time being in retail. And it's different, than a lot of service businesses I've been in. We look at units and rate, and we've had some real concrete discussions about we need the business to be over here. We need this business to cash flow on its own. It's time. So what are the inputs we can change? And we've identified a key one, average ticket, which is a big one in retail and in a lot of industries. And how do you tweak that? How do you move that? We don't need to move it $1 million. You need to move it a couple dollars, because a couple dollars by thousands of tickets starts to add up very, very quickly for our business. So, that's a key focus, and we're seeing real traction. We've identified a couple areas that we think make sense. We implement, we try. Some have failed. Some have worked really well. The ones that work well, we keep doing. And we stabilize that as part of the business. And then we go on to the next experiment.
I'd imagine once you're able to get your philosophy across, it's a different level of trust with your clients. When you look at scaling your own ventures, what tends to become the biggest bottleneck yourself? Do you find is client acquisition, systems, team capacity, or the execution itself?
I think the biggest challenge to scaling is always going to be people. So, we're on the smaller side of things. We're not Apple Computer. I can't, or Facebook,
Maybe one
Meta.
day.
Right. Yeah. Or Meta, where you can go drop, $20 million to buy a whole team and you get a team going. We're a finite system. I'm finite and I am a bottleneck, meaning, I've got unique skill sets that are hard to replicate, within our system anyways. So where I'm able to put time is where we're able to grow. And then I have to be able to hand that off and shift gears. The bottleneck's always the people, to execute, making sure that you have the right ones empowered in the right way, in the right spots. And getting that all tweaked the right way can be very difficult.
Just taking a look at what's going on currently with AI, but definitely for the future. With businesses getting increasingly complex, more systems, more tools, more moving parts, do you think strong management philosophy is becoming more important or less understood?
I think strong management philosophy doesn't change. You're talking about tools, you're not talking about philosophy. From my standpoint, having the right vision and empowering people to work within that system includes getting them the right tools. So, where is AI going to work as a tool? How does it help? Where does it get in the way and complicate things? I'm sure you read the same stories I do, where AI use is being forced in lots of places to really no good end. So you must use the tool because you must use the tool. So, clearly understanding what you want to accomplish is key. And that is the philosophy.
I think there's a big gap still in many areas, maybe not completely, of the vision and the absolute execution of where the future is going with AI. So having the people in place and having the vision and the philosophy to carry it all the way through, I think that will remain to be the most important thing.
So it'd be interesting to see, and I know that we're in an accelerated cycle. I've read the case studies of how long it took electricity to be fully adopted. It went into factories as a curiosity for lighting and to eliminate some steam power at first. It took 50 years to hit the mainstream world before we started electrifying significant cities and towns. Obviously, once the internet showed up, it went faster than 50 years. But realistically, that was a big technological leap. And it took 20 years for it to really be fully integrated into a lot of what we do and to become integral. AI is moving faster, but we don't necessarily know where it's going to go. Yeah, I'm using the internet because it's in current time, current memory. But yeah, there's a lot of failures there. There's a lot of fall downs. There's a lot of disappointments, and there's a lot of going sideways. And I think AI is going to have those moments too. It's not going to be a completely seamless sprint to the end. But I think the people that are willing to explore what it can do for them, if they know what they want to accomplish, are going to be the ones that are the most successful.
Yeah, like you said, things are moving a lot quicker, especially with the technology moving forward. I'm a big believer that the human race itself is just learning at a much quicker pace. And as that gets faster, it'll just develop quicker and quicker, and we'll be able to hit our goals quicker.
Now, we probably don't have time for this here, but a funny evolutional cul-de-sac is going to be whether or not we can actually adapt faster. So biologically, there is an adoption cycle that we have, and that is why some things take as long as they do. To work their way in, no matter how cool they are. The automobile, it took a while. We had automobiles for a long time before Henry Ford figured out putting one in every garage and getting people comfortable with putting one in every garage. So I don't think our wetware necessarily works faster. It has a lot more coming at it. And that may or may not be a recipe for success.
Doug, that's pretty much everything I had for you today as far as the business goes. I did just have one last thing, for the audience. For someone younger, maybe a student or a future entrepreneur or early business owner, what's the first thing they should focus on if they actually want to understand how strong businesses are built and run well?
First, find a passion point. If what you want to do is start something, find something you can believe in. You don't have to love it, just something you can believe it's going to work, whether it's a service or a product. And as soon as you've done a little bit of testing to see if it's actually going to fly in the marketplace, very quickly, either yourself, if you're skilled at it, or if you need to hire a partner or you need to hire a consultant, get somebody in to build your foundation for you. Now, I'm circling all the way back to what Launchwell does, but businesses so often fail because they don't have the foundation to launch from. It isn't that complicated. There's a lot of pieces and a lot of parts, and if you got to figure them all out for yourself and you're busy trying to sell or trying to develop, it's really tough. So you need a partner, or you need the knowledge, or you need someone to come in and help work you through it and get that foundation solid as soon as you think you've got a business.
Doug, this was incredibly insightful. I really appreciate how clearly you broke down not just what you do, but how management philosophy actually shape everything from leadership to operations and growth. I think people of different levels are going to take real value from this, and I greatly appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ethan. Very fun to be here.